welcome back to another episode of Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake. So excited. I feel like I start off my episodes by saying, so excited. I really need to stop that. It's the third one, and I think I've done it for every episode. But yeah, welcome back. You guys know by this point that I love to get comfy and cozy, so I brought my blanket. If you want to put your blanket on, go ahead and do it. Get cozy while you're editing, whatever. Maybe you have a blanket in the car. Do you guys do that? I do that for road trips. I bring a blanket in the car with me and a little pillow. You gotta be comfy. It's my favorite top priority in life, really. So episode 3, guys. It feels weird that it's only episode 3 because I really feel like we're friends. I feel like I know you. Mostly because everyone listening to this, I actually do know. Hey guys. But I really feel like we're building a community here, and that we get to be creative together. We get to have community together, and we get to, at this episode, this is a turning point, get to walk into coaching together and get to learn. So I'm super excited because this week is all about photography. So photographers unite. We get to talk about our favorite thing today. But before we get into that, I want to give you guys some life updates per usual. This is 4th of July week, so happy 4th of July. Oh my gosh, wait, this podcast is coming out on 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. I hope you guys are having a great day. I hope you don't have to work today. I hope you're getting to take the day off, go lay by the pool. That's what Zach and I are going to do. We're having a little 4th of July party tomorrow, which is the day that this podcast is going to come out. And yeah, I'm pumped. I'm sure that it'll be in my life updates next week for Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm sure I'll tell you guys all about the 4th of July party. But for this past week, it's been really interesting because I told you guys last week how life has been insane with the amount of shoots that I've had. So I've had a ton of editing that goes along with that. But this week I am pumped because I kind of I didn't take the week off because I'm clearly working, right? I'm recording this podcast, but I did take off the week from doing shoots other than I have a 3-month long contract with a business. And so I've been working with that brand every week for 3 months. So I did them today, but other than that, no shoots. It feels weird after a 2-week long stint of shoots every day. It feels weird to not have one. I keep looking at my calendar. I'm oh, I have a shoot tonight. No, I don't. It feels great. It feels kind of freeing, honestly. We have a friend in town. His name is Alex. He was one of our roommates back in Georgia when we lived there before moving to Charleston, and we love him. So we're having fun. I sent them away so that I could do this podcast, though. I was Alex, our friend Alex, not myself, obviously. And then Zach, I was you guys got to go. So they're working out right now. I think they might play pickleball. I don't know. But yeah, I sent them away so that I could hang out with you guys today. So yeah, life updates, honestly, that's pretty much it. Nothing crazy, really. Also, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but there's an airplane driving by. So just in case you can hear that, I feel the need to mention it. We live really close to the airport, and to a military base. So sometimes that one was just a normal airplane. But guys, our whole apartment shakes when there's a military plane that goes by. So if that happens, I will stop and let you know, because chances of you hearing that one, high. But yeah, I don't feel like I have any more life updates, honestly. My life is pretty chill this week. That's pretty much it. I hope you guys have had a chill week too. Let me know, DM me if you've had a crazy week. Tell me all about your life. Again, this is a community. Okay, you guys know me. I brought my notes. Classic. I love notes. And this week I decided to start the first podcast about photography ever with something that I get all the time. The number one question that I get on Instagram all the time is, what are your tips for beginners? And so I decided I would just go ahead and start with that. And there's always people that are DMing me or asking me questions about beginner photographers, what I would go back and do, advice for them, whatever it might be. And I just decided to give 10 tips for beginner photographers. So yeah, I wrote some down. Figured we could chat about it today. I don't know how long this episode is going to be, so I guess we'll see how long I talk for and call it a day after that. So hang with me. Okay, let's get into it. So the first one that I wrote down is master your camera settings. And I know that that's duh, right? Like if you're asking for beginner tips or tips for beginner photographers, like of course I'm going to say this, but it really is so important, guys. And so I wrote down 3 things that I want you guys to master if you haven't already: aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Those are like the top things that if you get nothing else in photography, you gotta have those 3, okay? And I'll tell you guys, this isn't like from a photography class or anything like that, but it was something that helped. Someone told me this and it just clicked in my head. So I'm gonna say it, but I would like to clarify that this probably isn't like, there's lots of like, what's the word? Like rules for photography, I guess. And like, this is not a standard way that you should probably think about it. But I'm going to let you in on my secret because, like I said, it helped for me. So when I first got a camera, this is what someone told me about ISO. They said that ISO is like fake light. So the more that you add to it, the brighter your image is going to be, right? But also because it's fake, the more that you add to it, the less high quality image you're going to have. So it's going to be grainier if you add way too much, right? So there's like a happy medium. You can add a little bit of fakeness without it being grainy, but you don't want to add too much because otherwise the image quality goes down. So that's ISO, okay? The aperture, or f-stop, it's kind of known as both, is like how blurry your background is going to be. So if you have a high aperture, the background's going to be like sharp. You're going to be able to see the trees in the background. You're going to be able to see the city landscape in the background or something like that. But if you're doing like a portrait and you want the subject to be in focus, that background, you kind of want it to be blurry, right? Like you want it to not really stand out so that your subject can stand out. That means that you're going to want a low aperture. So you're going to want like a 1.8 aperture or a 2.8 if you use a 24-70 lens. But those higher apertures are really good for, depending on the image, you can also do it for portraits, obviously, but also they're really good for like landscape photos and stuff like that. So I know I just flew through that, but ISO is like fake light. Aperture, or f-stop, is how blurry your background is. And then your shutter speed is basically how quickly your camera can take a photo. So if your shutter speed is really low, it's taking a long time to take that photo, versus if you have a high shutter speed, it's basically like click, 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 we're gonna take it really quick, right? So your shutter is going like, okay, weird noise effect, or sound effect, but it is what it is. So if you have like a really low shutter speed, it's really slow. So it's gonna be like, and it's allowing a bunch of light into your picture, okay? If you're really going quick with the shutter speed and it's like 1/1000, it's gonna be like that, okay? But it's allowing less light into a picture. So when it's really dark outside, your shutter speed needs to be lower and your ISO needs to be higher, okay? But if it's sunny outside, your ISO needs to be lower and your shutter speed needs to be higher because you're wanting to allow less light in. And you don't really need any fake light if it's a really bright day outside, right? But the thing about shutter speed is if you guys are into like the blurry photos trend, that's the thing that you're focused on, is that shutter speed, because the more light that you allow into your photo, the longer it takes for your shutter to actually like work, right? So it's like, and it's gathering all that light and bringing it in. So when it's doing that, it's also like taking time, which means that if your subject moves, if they move their hand is going to be blurry in the photo. Does that make sense? So like I said, I don't know that that's like how a photography class would teach it because your girl is self-taught. But that was basically how somebody taught me when I first got my camera, and it was so helpful. I'll never forget it. My friend Joel and Drew, they taught me and it was great. So yeah, I was very thankful for that. And that just like helped it to click in my mind. So if you're a beginner photographer, I really hope that that helped. If you are like a tenured photographer and you're listening to me say this and you're judging me right now, that's okay too. You can judge me because I know that wasn't like the proper way to explain it, but I hope that it was helpful for some of you guys who are beginners. Yeah, so I want you guys to take that knowledge and know it, but also put it into practice. So that's the second one. The first one was to know your camera settings, know aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, know what they do, how to do them. And then the second thing I want you guys to do, tips for beginner photographers, is literally just practice. I want you to practice, practice, practice. When I first got my camera, I got my first camera in 2015, okay? And I was not taking any clients. I wasn't doing anything. Like, I had a totally different job, right? I worked at a church at the time, but I had a bunch of friends and I just love taking photos. So similar to how you would like hang out with your friends and bring your phone around, and take pictures, do that with your camera. Practice all the time. It's okay to be the one with the camera on your shoulder all the time. And it's that's going to help you. It's that's going to help you with how to pose people. It's that's going to help you to master those settings. It's that's going to help you like how to not be weird when you're asking somebody to take their picture. Like, that practice is just going to help you with anything. It's like that with anything. Like, it makes sense, right? Practice. I don't need to harp on that too long. Okay, this is kind of a weird one, but I felt like writing it down because I don't think a lot of people talk about this. So I'm going to read what I wrote just to make sure that it makes sense. But here's what I said on my notes. I said, some people have an eye for the art side of photography and others have a love for the technology side of photography. So what I mean by that is like, I personally, Alex, I have a love for the art side of photography. I love that it's creative. I love that you can kind of do whatever you want. Like, it's beautiful in that. Some people love the technology side where they love the rules of photography, right? They love like the rule of thirds, and they love how they can mathematically make a picture look really good if they do the right things. If they bring this formula in, the photo and the end result is going to look really good. And if they use the right gear, it's going to look really good, that kind of thing. And I think in the photography world, there's kind of those two buckets a lot of the time, like the ones that love the art of photography and then the ones that love like the formula of photography. And I think that's in itself a really cool thing about being a photographer is like, you can be someone, okay, in school, this is kind of changing subjects, but it's like, it's helping me get to my point, okay? Just go with me on this. But like, how in school, there's people who are good at math and there's people who are good at like language arts and English, right? I was the language arts and English one. And there are some people who are good at math. That's not me. Never was, okay? But what I think is cool is like, to be a photographer, you can be someone who loves English and language arts, or you can also be someone who loves math. Like, it's not an either or kind of thing, because it's true. Like, you can create art either way. Like, the end result you can get either way, whether you love the creativity side of it or you love the like formula side of it. But my tip, while it's not like a solid bullet point, just hear me out on this. I hope this makes sense. I feel like, okay, this is what I wrote down. If you have a love for the art side, then your tip is that you need to learn to lean into the rules of photography. But if you have a love for the technical side, then you need to lean into doing things just because it looks cool. So that one's like a more personalized thing, and you kind of have to like dig into your self-awareness to know which one you are. Like I said, I'm definitely the creative side of it. Like, to be honest, I'm just not that good with technology. And I'm literally a photographer and I literally have a podcast where I need to use technology a lot, okay? But like, my husband, my husband can, like, you guys met him last week. Zach can like look at something and he's going to like figure it out. He's going to learn it. He's going to learn how to make the best photo with that mechanical thing. But I don't work that way. I just have an eye for it and I know what looks good, and that's the way I roll, right? But photography is a both and. There is a formula and there's a really good way to capture a photo. And if you don't know how to do that, then you're missing out on some of what your art could have, right? But on the flip side, if you're all rules, regulations, you can't do that, you can't do this, then you're missing so much of photography. And so you've got to figure out which one you lean on, like which camp you kind of find yourself in, and then do the opposite, practice the opposite, and pull yourself into something that maybe you have less of in your like natural ability. So that was a weird tip, but I'm glad that you guys hung out with me on that one, because you really had no choice. I have the microphone here. Okay, so that was number 3. I don't even know how to recap that one. Lean into the things you're not naturally good at. That works as a bullet point for us. So that was number 3. Number 4, understand how light affects your photos. As a photographer, your lighting is everything. So like I said, when we were talking about like mastering your settings, ISO, shutter speed, that is light. Light directly affects those things. but also you need to learn natural light side of things too, or like how to utilize lights on the outside of your camera, not just inside of it. So there's things like where the sun is placed is really important. How you place lights and why you place them there is really, really important. That's something to like play around with maybe later in your photography journey. I would just personally, you don't have to do this, but I would personally stick to like just natural light right now and try to figure that out. And then as you move on, you can go into, as I'm saying that, I don't know that I agree with that. Personally, I would do that. However, depending on what kind of photography you want to learn and go into, learning lighting outside of natural light is probably important too. So I'll take back a little bit of what I said. But yeah, learn how lighting affects your photo. I think that's really important. Okay, next thing. What number is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, number 5. We're halfway through, guys. We're kicking, we're rocking, we're rolling. Okay, number 5, explore different niches to find your interests. And this might be different than you think. I personally have a unique story with this. Actually, it's probably not unique. I bet honestly a lot of photographers have this too. But for me, when I first started photography, I just naturally started photographing like couples and families because I just thought that that's what photographers did. And I don't know if I was like completely ignorant to the world of photography before, but like there's so many different types of photographers, and even where you live doesn't have to dictate exactly what it is that you do. Because I lived in like a suburb of Atlanta, and I didn't think that I could do anything that would be like fashion or something like that, which like is so dumb of me because I literally lived in a suburb of Atlanta, like a big city where there's definitely fashion opportunities. But for me, I didn't even like think about that at first. So I just started learning with families and with couples and then some seniors, because I was also like I said, I worked at a church and I was a student pastor. And so I had like high school seniors around me all the time. But I thought that like in order to one day make money with this, I have to be in like weddings. I've got to be a wedding photographer. And I have found that personally to not actually be true. And if you're a wedding photographer, that's amazing. You're crushing it. You're loving it. It's awesome. But for me, I have an inflammatory disease, which I told you guys about in the first episode. And I would come home from weddings and I would be like exhausted. And I was part-time at the time too. So I would wake up the next day, go to church and work all day. And I would be even more tired. Like I was wearing my body out for really no reason. And while I loved the couples that I had and while I loved the people that I was getting to serve, I didn't actually love the wedding industry per se. But I love the next generation and I love creative portraits. And so for me, like finding my niche was looking, okay, what is it that I personally love? And what is it that I am filled by, I guess would be a good way to say it. And like, what am I creatively filled by? So for me, I was creatively filled by creative portraits. That was like something I loved to do, coming up with a concept and having a model and doing something like that. And that usually was like one person. And then I also love like leaning into the next generation. So for me, high school seniors was like, this just makes sense. But then I also added like local brands into that when I went full time too, because I love the creativity of that. I love getting to work with local brands. So for me, it was cool because I was doing a lot of different things. I got to look at what I loved the most from those different things. And then that was when I picked a niche. Sometimes I think, and this is what I started to do with couples and weddings, was like I picked my niche too early almost. And I was starting to even phase out those high school seniors before I was like, wait, why am I doing this? I had like this whole great awakening and I like flipped it. But I wish that I hadn't. I wish I had just continued to do everything until I figured out what my style was or what I wanted to do with that. So basically it's like, do what you want right now. If you're a beginner photographer, you have the freedom and flexibility to do whatever you want. If you realize that you don't like something, don't do it. But you're not going to realize if you like something or not without doing it first. So my tip, I guess, is just do what you want. But then again, like if you decide that you don't like something, don't keep doing it just to do it. Especially if you're part-time and you're beginner, like you don't have to do that. You just don't have to. Take it out. Do what you love. Anyway. Okay, that's enough on that. Next tip, I feel like I've said so much. Like after every single tip, I'm like, So sorry for that one. If my, no, I said it again. Okay, if my dad is watching this right now, I know he's counting the ums and the likes that I've said so far. So, hey, Dad, sorry. Okay, we're going to move on, and I'm not going to say The next point, the next tip is to learn Lightroom. Dang it. Okay, I'm going to ignore my ums. It's fine. Learn Lightroom or Capture One. I personally don't use Capture One. I use Lightroom, but really learn your editing software of choice. It's super important. I wrote down like learn how editing can make a difference in your photo because it really can. I would personally invest in presets. That's what I did before I created my own. Presets are great because they give you a high quality photo without having to fully learn Lightroom, and they help you to learn it a little bit because you're always going to have to tweak a preset. It's not a like copy paste. If it is, you might be using it wrong, honestly. Like you should have to tweak it a little bit to make it perfect for the photo. But if you have like that base, it can be easier to learn the rest instead of doing it from scratch. So I think that's super important. One little note that I will say, I talked to some photographers at Photo Camp, my educational content weekend, and I was talking to them back in April, and a couple of them were like, I don't use presets because I paid for some and they weren't what I thought they were going to be. And I asked them, I was like, where did you get your presets? And they told me they got them on Etsy. And I am not like dissing all Etsy presets. However, when I was a beginner photographer, I bought, I think like 3 packs of presets on Etsy. And I am like a cheap girly queen. And so I like didn't want to invest and like pay high dollar for presets, right? But they make a difference when you're paying high dollar versus paying like $10 for a pack of like 70 presets on Etsy or something like that. Like they're not high quality and you can tell. So I bought those presets on Etsy and I never used them because they were not good. So you need to know that the presets that you're buying are worth the investment. I personally would not buy them on Etsy anymore just because of my experience with that. But like I personally sell presets and I know that I worked really, really hard on them. I tested them out on different cameras, different brands, like all of that kind of stuff. And I know that they work to create a product that I'm proud of. So, and I have other friends that do the same. I would just maybe look at photographers and go almost like shop locally with photographers. Obviously Etsy is too, but you kind of get the gist on it. But if you want high quality images and you want high quality presets, then you need to pay a higher dollar than like $10 for 25 presets or something like that. So I personally would invest in presets to help you learn Lightroom. Also, all of these things that I'm going to say and that I have said, look more on YouTube about them. Look for a YouTube tutorial about Lightroom, about how to use it or Capture One or whatever. Look for a YouTube tutorial about how to best use ISO or to find your light as a photographer. Like YouTube has so many good so many good, I don't know what I'm trying to think. You know what I'm saying? So many good things, videos, tutorials. That was the word I was looking for. Tutorials to look at. So that is, I don't even know what tip we're on, but we're going. The next tip is ask for feedback from others to learn and grow. Yeah, you guys know this, but I really, really, really value community, creativity, and coaching. And this whole podcast has been like the coaching piece of this, right? But also I think community also goes into that. Like you should have a community around you that can tell you how they feel about something and it not be offensive. You know, like part of community is holding each other accountable in a way too. And I'm not saying that people should like share their opinion all the time without being asked. Like that is not what I am saying. But there should be select people that you feel okay with asking without needing their validation, right? So like if I ask my husband, hey, can you tell me directly what you think about this in a photo. He's going to tell me, I think it actually needs to look a little bit more like this. And I can ask Zach and he's going to give me more of like a client's perspective, right? But if I need a perspective from a photographer who's going to tell me the exact thing of what that photo might be missing or something like that, I'm going to call Cassidy, I'm going to call Preston, I'm going to call Megan, I'm going to call like Lindsay, all of my other photographer friends who can give me like really good feedback on it. So I think asking for feedback is really important. On that, you know what? Let me share a little bit of a story with you. So it's nothing crazy, but like back in, I want to say it was like maybe 2019. So I was still fairly new in photography and into taking clients and everything. I had a family session. This was back in the family days. And it was a really hard session. Like, I'll be honest with you. It was the whole client experience side of it was really rough. The kids were crying. It was like about to rain that day. And so it was very, very cloudy. And at the time, I didn't quite have my style nailed down, right? Like, I wasn't exclusively shooting brands and seniors, portrait type things. And I wasn't exclusively kind of editing in my style with my Coastal Charm presets. They weren't yet vibrant and poppy and all of that kind of stuff. So this session, because it was cloudier out and I was still learning a lot of those things, it naturally looked a little bit more moody and it naturally looked a little bit more on the darker side. And when I sent the photos back, I never heard anything back. And of course, as a photographer, you're like, oh no, they hate them, you know? So I sent a follow-up email and I just said like, hey, just wanted to check in. I sent you your photos. I hope that you love them. Let me know if there's anything that I can do to better serve you. Because I invited them in with that last sentence, she felt comfortable to come back to me and say, hey, thank you so much. We love the photos. But I felt nervous responding because I didn't like how our eyes looked in the photos. And at first I'm like, oh no, you know, like this is terrible. Of course, nobody wants like their clients to come back and say that they don't like the photos. But when I went and looked at the photos with her feedback, I knew exactly what she was talking about. She was talking about because it was overcast, their eyes were darker. And now I know when it's overcast that I always look at their eyes to see if I need to brighten it up at all so they don't look like raccoons, you know? But like if that person had never given me that feedback, I don't know that I would do that today. I don't know that I would still like to this day, I always, when it's an overcast day, I'm like, oh, gotta watch the eyes. Can't make them look like raccoons, you know? But the other piece of that was that I invited that feedback in. So when I send off a gallery, like now, I always say, let me know if there's anything else. But that's so hard because you and I as photographers, we have to be okay with having thick skin. We have to be okay with, yes, this being our art, but not defining our worth and identity like on how someone feels about our art, if that makes sense. And then also like knowing that if you're doing it for free, that's one thing as a beginner photographer, but when people are paying their money, we want them to like it. It's okay for them to come back and tell us things that like they would prefer to look different. Sometimes we can change them. Sometimes people are demanding. We need to not allow them to like run all over us, right? Like there's a balance with it, of course. But what I did was quickly re-edit their eyes, made it look better, learned how to do that, sent it off to them. They loved them after that. And they had a great experience with me post the shoot because I did that. She was so grateful. She was so thankful. And yeah, that may have been one of the last family sessions that I did, honestly. Now that I'm thinking about it, it really may have because the kids crying, that one really got me. But post the shoot, the client experience was great because I just re-edited them quickly for them. So all that to say, invite the feedback in, receive it well, and then you can learn from it and you can grow from it. But if we feel insecure when people give us feedback, then that's on us and we need to kind of like do the work of not feeling insecure. Like I said, though, it's also different if it's like merited feedback versus unmerited feedback. Y'all get me. Okay. Next one, and we're almost done. The next one is to study the work of great photographers. Do not copy the work of great photographers. We do not copy or work. We do not imitate the work, right? In that way. But we can love and value and appreciate and get inspiration from great photographers. So something to be kind of like noted with that too is sometimes people say that and it turns into copying because they do the exact same kind of photography, right? So, for example, if you are really into creative portraits and you follow my friend Preston, okay? I am Preston Luke on Instagram. If you follow Preston, then you might see a lot of his work and then you take a concept and you copy paste that concept into your own work. Now, you can take a concept, that's fine. But if you are pointing out every piece of the photo that he's created, every piece of the art direction that he has in his photo and doing that, especially if you don't give him credit, I don't know. I'd press pause a little bit because like you're just copying what he's done. There's no creativity for you in that. Like I want you guys to learn how to do that. So maybe him and I one time did like a pickleball shoot, okay? Maybe you see that and you're like, I want to do a pickleball shoot. Heck yeah, do it. But do it differently than how we did it, right? Like there's inspiration and then there's copying. But the other thing that I would say is sometimes it's great to find people who inspire you, maybe with just their editing or with the way that they pose their clients or whatever it is, but maybe they're not in the same niche as you. So sometimes you can like really be inspired by people who are family photographers because they edit with this amazing cinematic, filmy, grain, cool thing, but you shoot seniors. Or you shoot weddings, like it's okay to be inspired by people who don't do exactly what you do. So here's some people who inspired me. I have 3 that I wrote down. Marina Williams is one. If you guys don't follow Marina on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, what are you doing? She is so talented. I got to go to her content weekend in 2022, and that was actually where I met Preston and Megan, and I'm just so grateful that I went. So much of my business has come out of that and from really like being inspired by her and learning from her. So she is amazing. Marina Williams, she focuses on creative portraits mainly. And then Roxy Facer. I don't know if you guys have heard of Roxy Facer, but I love her stuff. Like, guys, she's so good. You guys know I love the beach and that I'm very heavily inspired by the beach. Roxy actually is one of the photographers for Roxy the company. I don't think there's any connection in the fact that like her name is Roxy. Maybe there is and I just don't know it. But she does like video and photography for them. And gosh, she's so good. She's very like film inspired, I think. Or maybe she even shoots on film, actually, now that I'm saying that. I think she does some Super 8 stuff. She has like cool stuff where she'll like go underwater with her camera. She has like underwater case and everything. And like just really, really amazing stuff. And then somebody else who inspires me, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to try. It's Nicholas Quinniu. Sure. Nicholas Quinniu, something like that. But he's actually a hotel and travel photographer. And he mainly is like in Europe. I think he's fully pretty much in Europe, but he goes to like different hotels and takes photos for them. That to me, like watching him work has been like really inspiring because I really love the colors of his photos. And looking at that, I don't know. There's something about it that's just so inspiring. And he's so different than my niche. Like I don't really work with hotels or anything. I work with apartment complexes here in Charleston. So that's something that could be kind of similar. But like really it's mainly the colors of his photos and how the photos make me feel are similar to how I'm like, I want to make those colors in my photos. I want to bring people to that kind of feeling when they look at my photo. So it's cool how you can like gain inspiration from different photographers too. Another little note, you don't have to find different photographers just through social media. Something that I look at too that inspires me is like when I'm in the mall or shopping, I love looking at pictures there, and that can be something like a source of inspiration. And if you like a photo, just like take your phone out and take a picture of it and kind of tuck it away for a rainy day, like be inspired by different things that you see or different photos that you see in life too, not just on social media. The other thing that I didn't mention with that, like I did talk about not just copying people, but feeling inspired by people. The other thing that I didn't talk about though is like not comparing yourself to them either. You're brand new. It's okay that your photos don't look like them. And then even when you're not brand new, it's okay that your photos don't look like them. You bring what you bring to the table, guys. Like I said before, like your identity and your worth can't be wrapped up in your art. It's yours and you get to create it, and that's beautiful and it's amazing. But my work doesn't have to look like Marina's work. My work doesn't have to look like Roxy Facer's work. My work is Alex Blake's work. And yours is yours, and that's okay. They're supposed to look different. So don't get in like the comparison game. Like, don't trap yourself into that, because it's just silly, and it's just like a little spiral moment if you do that. Okay, that actually kind of really easily takes me into my second to last point, and that is be patient and persistent in your learning, because it takes time. So be patient with yourself, because it does take time, but also be persistent. Consistently ask questions. Like, I love when people ask me questions about like, oh, what are your tips for beginners? It's why I'm making this podcast today, right? It's why I'm in this episode right now, because people have asked me that. And I love when people ask that. That is the thing. Like, I want to always ask questions. I had an issue with my camera when I was at photo camp, or like right before photo camp. And I was talking about it with Cassidy, and I said something and she was like, wait, I know how to fix that. And she was like, girl, come on. And I was like, oh, no way. Great. But if I hadn't have said something, if I had just pretended like I knew everything, I wouldn't have learned that thing about my camera. Like, it's so dumb when I try to pretend like I have made it to this level so I don't have to ask anyone any questions anymore. No, we're always going to be learners, and we should always be learners. That's part of humility too, you know? Like, when we choose to be humble, we get to learn even more and grow quicker than when we just lean into pride, and then we grow really slow because we never learn anything. It takes a lot longer to learn something if you're just isolated and by yourself. That's why we love community, right? Okay, last thing, this is an easy one. Have fun. I know that's like kind of a dumb one, but seriously, like, photography is supposed to be fun. It's the science, yes, but it's also the art, and mixed together, it is so fun. So don't take yourself too seriously. I feel like that's like a really good tip, to just not take yourself too seriously in life or in photography. Like, you don't have to like make it by this date or make it by this time, or else you're not going to be a good photographer. No, for me, I got my first camera in 2015 and never expected or thought or anticipated that I would ever go full time. Not once did I think that until 2020 is when I was like, I really love this. But I loved my job, and I did not really want to change my job. And so for me, it was like, I'm just going to take my time with it, and that's okay. But I think sometimes when people are like, oh, this could be really good income for me, they get trapped in that because they feel like they have to make it by a certain time. Just free yourself from that, because you don't. This is fun. It's supposed to be fun. You, like I said before, like, you get to do whatever you want. If you don't like it, don't shoot it. And if you do like it, then chase after that. Like, this is all just for fun. It's amazing. Okay, that's pretty much all I have for beginner photographers. I hope that you guys liked this episode. It feels weird. It's like my very first episode on photography, even though it's like the third one. So let me know what you would want to hear about next. I've been kind of posting on my Instagram stories on Alex Blake Photography and just asking you guys what you want to hear. But if I don't post that, you can totally just DM me and tell me what you think would be cool to hear me talk about. So it doesn't have to be something you think I'm an expert at, because I'm not an expert at a lot of things. So it can just be like something, I don't know, fun to chat about. Let me know. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you have any other beginners for photographers that I didn't share. Like, this is a community, guys. We're in this together, you know? Okay. I think I'm ready to sign off. I don't know how long this episode was. My laptop's over there, so I'll look at it later. Okay. Well, signing off for the very third time on Alex Blake. Oh, wait, no, I said my name wrong. On Let's Create with Alex Blake. I'm your host, Alex Blake, and I will see you next Thursday.
I just want to make something that matters to myself, unique and distinct.